Tom Reed stood at the massive window of the Galactic Council station, watching the swirling purple nebula outside. His reflection showed a tired man in his 40s, wearing the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. As humanity's ambassador to the Galactic Council, he had grown used to the looks of contempt from other species. Today, those looks would be worse than ever. The emergency alert had come 3 hours ago. Something massive and deadly was moving through populated systems, consuming energy and leaving destruction in its wake. Now, Tom had to face the Council and their judgment once again. The Council chamber doors slid open with a soft hiss. Tom walked in, his footsteps echoing across the polished floor. The circular room towered above him, with seats rising in concentric rings. Representatives of 30 different species looked down at him. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few glowed with internal light. All of them watched him with what he had learned to recognize as disapproval. High Ambassador Rix, a tall being with golden scales and 4 arms, spoke first. The human representative finally arrives. "Tell us, Ambassador Reed, why does Earth refuse to join the defense fleet?" Tom took a deep breath. "Earth doesn't refuse to help. We're sending our drone fleet and research vessels to study the threat. We need to understand what we're dealing with before we—" "Cowards." The word came from Ambassador Kroll, a massive creature whose species prided itself on fighting space pirates with their bare hands. "While your machines take pictures, our warriors die. 3 systems are already lost." Tom held his ground. "And how many ships were lost in direct attacks?" "We lost 8 battle cruisers," Rix admitted, "but they died with honor, facing the enemy directly." "They died without learning anything useful," Tom said quietly. The chamber erupted in angry shouts and gestures. Some species flared bright colors in anger, while others displayed threat postures. Tom waited for the noise to die down. "The human speaks truth," came an unexpected voice. Tom turned to see Ambassador Lin, one of the few allies humans had made. Her species looked like floating clouds of silver mist. "Direct attacks have failed. Perhaps we should consider their approach." "Their approach?" Kroll's voice dripped with scorn. "Hiding behind machines, sending drones to do a warrior's job. When humans first joined the Council, we thought their caution came from being a young species. But no, it's their nature. They build cities underground. They send robots to explore planets before landing. They hide in protective suits on barely dangerous worlds. Even their entertainment warns of every possible danger." Several ambassadors laughed. Tom felt his face grow hot, but kept his voice steady. "Yes, we're cautious. We test things first. We study before we act. We use machines to protect living beings. And that's why our casualty rates are the lowest in the galaxy." "And your glory is the lowest too," Rick said. "Your species has no songs of great space battles, no heroes who died facing impossible odds." "We have different kinds of heroes," Tom replied. "We celebrate those who save lives, not those who throw them away. Our greatest achievements came from careful planning, not reckless charge." The chamber grew quiet as a new alert flashed across all screens. 2 more systems had gone dark. Thousands more lives lost to the approaching threat. "Very well," High Ambassador Rix said coldly. "Send your drones, human. Study from safety while braver species fight. But remember this day, when you hid while others died." Tom looked at each ambassador in turn. "I will remember this day. I will remember it when our data helps us understand what we're facing. I will remember it when we find a way to fight this thing without needless deaths. And I will remember it when we save lives because we were smart enough to be careful." He turned and walked out, the weight of their stares on his back. In his pocket, his communicator vibrated. Earth's drone fleet had reached the danger zone. The real work was about to begin. And Tom knew, with a certainty born of human history, that caution and careful study would save more lives than all the brave, glorious, useless charges combined. Sometimes, Courage meant being willing to be called a coward. Captain Mary Wells watched the main screen of the science vessel Prudence with intense focus. Her ship sat at the very edge of safe scanning range, nearly 2 light-years from the approaching threat. The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, gathering data from the massive network of drones spread across the sector. "Another attack fleet gone," reported John, her sensor officer. "The rock breakers just lost 3 more ships trying to blast it head-on." Mary shook her head. The rock breakers were proud warriors, known for breaking asteroids with their ships as a show of strength. Now their battle tactics had cost them hundreds of lives. The thing they were watching defied normal space physics. It looked like a storm made of dark purple energy, spreading across space like an angry cloud. Any ship that got too close simply disappeared, their energy absorbed into the growing mass. "Launch observation drone series 12 through 15, Mary ordered. "Keep them at maximum safe distance. I want readings from all spectrums." As the drones moved into position, a harsh voice came over the communication system. "Human vessel. This is War Commander Gox of the Steel Claw Fleet. Your cowardly observations dishonor all who have died fighting this beast." Mary took a deep breath before responding. "War Commander, we're collecting vital data that could help us." "Data? We need warriors. Real fighters, not hidden watchers." Before Mary could respond, the Steel Claw Fleet appeared on their screens. 6 heavily armed warships charged directly toward the purple storm. Mary watched in helpless frustration as warning signals flashed across her display. "They're too close," John said quietly. "Energy readings are spiking." The crew watched in silence as the Steel Claw ships opened fire with their most powerful weapons. For a moment, their attacks seemed to create holes in the purple mass. Then the storm pulsed, growing suddenly larger. The Steel Claw ships vanished in an instant, swallowed by the expanding energy field. "Record everything," Mary ordered, her voice tight. "Every reading, every energy spike, especially what happened when they attacked." Hours passed as they carefully tracked the entity's movement. More warrior fleets arrived, and more ships were lost in direct attacks. Each time, the storm seemed to grow stronger. "Captain," called Anna from the science station, "I'm seeing a pattern in the drone data. After each attack, the entity's energy signature changes. It's learning, adapting, getting stronger from the attacks themselves." Mary leaned forward. "Show me." The main screen filled with graphs and energy patterns. To most species, it would look like meaningless lines, but humans had spent centuries developing ways to study dangerous things from a safe distance. Mary saw it immediately. The storm wasn't just absorbing energy, it was evolving its defenses with each attack. "Send this data to all human ships in the sector," she ordered, "and get me Ambassador Reed on the line." While she waited for the connection, another alien fleet arrived. The proud Dragon Warriors, known for their glorious suicide attacks. "Captain Wells," Tom Reed's tired face appeared on her screen. "Please tell me you have something." "We do, but you're not going to like it." Mary sent him the data. "The more they attack it, the stronger it gets. Direct combat is worse than useless. It's actually helping it grow." Tom's expression darkened as he read the data, and I suppose suggesting that everyone stop attacking will go over really well in the council. "Sir, it's worse than that." Mary pulled up a new set of readings. "Based on its growth rate and direction, it will reach the galactic core in less than a month. 15 inhabited systems lie in its path." On her main screen, the Dragon Warriors began their attack run. Their ships glowed with gathered energy, ready for their signature final glory attack. Mary wanted to warn them, to show them the data, but she knew they wouldn't listen. "Keep watching," Tom said grimly. "Keep recording. Keep your distance. We'll find a way to stop this thing, but we'll do it smart, not suicidal." The Dragon Warriors vanished in a flash of purple light. Their sacrifice added new patterns to the data streams, patterns that might help save lives. If only the other species would stop fighting long enough to study them. Sometimes, Mary thought, the bravest thing was having the patience to understand your enemy, even while others called you a coward. Dr. James Cooper hadn't slept in 36 hours. He stared at the wall of holographic displays in the science lab of Space Station Hope, watching as thousands of data points from the drone network formed patterns in space. Coffee cups littered his desk, and his gray hair stuck up in all directions from running his hands through it too many times. "There's something here," he muttered. "Something we're all missing." Behind him, the lab door opened. Captain Mary Wells walked in, carrying fresh coffee. "Talk to me, James. The Council's demanding answers, and 3 more warrior fleets are preparing suicide runs." James took the coffee gratefully. "They need to stop. Look at this." He waved his hand, and the displays changed to show the purple storm's movement pattern. It's not random. Nothing in nature is truly random. Mary watched as he overlaid the paths of all previous attacks on the display. Red lines showed where alien ships had charged in. Purple lines showed how the storm had moved in response. "Every time they attack," James explained, "the storm doesn't just grow stronger. It moves, like a dance." He moved his fingers, and the display zoomed out to show the storm's entire path across the galaxy. "A dance?" Mary asked, leaning closer. "Yes. Look here." James highlighted a section where the Steel Claw fleet had attacked. When they hit it with energy weapons, it absorbed the power and moved left. When the Dragon Warriors used their final glory attack from the right, it moved up. It's not just eating the energy. It's responding to different types of attacks in specific ways. Mary's eyes widened. It's not mindless destruction. It's following rules. Exactly. James jumped up, nearly spilling his coffee. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Basic physics. But we couldn't see it because everyone kept attacking randomly, without studying the response patterns. He pulled up another display, this one showing energy readings from the human drone network. "Look at the smaller drones we lost. When they got too close, the storm pulled them in. But the ones that stayed at medium range," he pointed to a series of dots on the screen. "They weren't destroyed," Mary finished. "They were pushed away." "Right. This thing operates on strict physical rules. It's like a cosmic ballet. Every push has a specific pull. Every energy input creates a specific movement pattern." James's tired eyes were bright with excitement. The warrior races kept trying to overpower it, but you can't overpower a hurricane. You have to understand how it moves. The station's alert system suddenly blared. On the main screen, they watched as another alien fleet, the proud Star Runners, began their attack run. No, James muttered, grabbing his tablet. "They're going to make it worse." The Star Runners' ships fired their weapons in a coordinated pattern, something they were famous for. For a moment, it seemed to work. The storm's edge wavered. Then it happened. The storm's movement followed exactly the pattern James had predicted, swelling and shifting to absorb the attack. The Star Runner fleet vanished, and the storm grew even larger. "Send everything to Ambassador Reed," Mary ordered. "Every pattern, every prediction, every detail." James nodded, his fingers flying over the controls. But will they listen? The warrior races don't trust data. They trust weapons and glory. They'll have to listen. Mary's voice was firm. "Because if they don't," she pointed to James's projection of the storm's path. "According to your patterns, their attacks aren't just failing. They're actually steering this thing toward more populated systems." James slumped in his chair. "That's not even the worst part." He showed her the final calculation. "If these patterns hold true, and if the warrior races keep attacking, in 7 days, this storm will reach critical mass. After that, not even a coordinated attack from every fleet in the galaxy could stop it." Mary stared at the numbers, then at the continuing patterns of movement on the main display. So we have 7 days to convince the most stubborn warrior races in the galaxy to stop fighting. And start thinking, James added, because there's one more pattern I found, one that might give us a chance, if we're smart enough and patient enough to use it. On the screens above them, the purple storm continued its deadly dance through space, following rules that only the cautious could see and that only the patient could understand. The fate of the galaxy now rested not on bravery or strength, but on the human ability to stop, watch, and learn. The emergency meeting room on Space Station Hope was crowded with holographic displays showing the purple storm's movement. Captain Mary Wells stood at the front, facing the frustrated faces of fleet commanders from across the galaxy. Ambassador Tom Reed sat quietly in the corner, watching. You expect us to do nothing. War Commander Gox's hologram flickered with rage. While this thing eats our worlds. No, Mary said calmly. We expect you to do something smart instead of suicidal. She gestured, and Dr. James Cooper's data filled the room's central display. Every direct attack makes it stronger and pushes it toward populated systems. We need to try something different. The human way. Someone sneered. Hide and watch. The scientific way, Mary corrected. She pressed a button, and a new image appeared. A massive network of small dots surrounding the storm. This is our plan. We call it the web. The alien commanders leaned forward despite themselves. The display showed thousands of automated drones and remote stations, arranged in a complex pattern around the purple entity. Each drone and station will be positioned according to the storm's movement patterns, Mary explained. When it moves one way, these units will emit specific energy pulses to guide it another way, like shepherds herding a dangerous animal. Herding. With machines. Gox laughed. This is your great plan. It's better than dying uselessly. Tom spoke up from his corner. How many more crews do you want to sacrifice? Before Gox could answer, a new alert flashed. On the main screen, they watched as 3 more alien ships disappeared into the storm. The entity pulsed, growing larger, moving exactly as James's patterns had predicted. 5 days, Mary said quietly. That's all we have before it reaches critical mass. After that, nothing will stop it. She looked at each commander in turn. We need your help. Not your ships, not your warriors, your automated systems. Every drone, every remote station, every piece of technology you usually ignore in favor of direct combat. The room erupted in arguments, but one voice cut through the noise. Show me more. It was Commander Lynn of the Silver Fleet, one of the few who had started to see wisdom in the human approach. Mary nodded to her technical officer, who brought up detailed schematics. Each unit in the web will be programmed with the storm's response patterns. When it moves toward populated systems, coordinated energy pulses will nudge it away. Like thousands of small hands, all pushing gently in the right direction. And where will you push it? Another commander asked. Here, the display showed a distant region of empty space, a sector with no inhabited systems. Once we guide it there, we can study it safely and find a permanent solution. Study it. More waiting. Gox slammed his fist down. While you study, worlds burn. No, Tom stood up. While we study, worlds will be saved. Because we'll be controlling its path instead of strengthening it with attacks. A silence fell over the room as new data streamed in. The purple storm had just consumed another system, growing even larger. On a secondary display, James's countdown timer showed just under 5 days remaining. We need every automated unit you can spare, Mary said into the silence. Every drone, every remote station. We've transmitted the technical specifications to your engineers. We'll handle the programming and coordination. And if your plan fails, Commander Lynn asked quietly. Then you can go back to dying gloriously, Tom replied. But first, just once, try not fighting. Try thinking instead. The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Commander Lynn's hologram nodded. The Silver Fleet will provide its automated units. One by one, Other commanders began to agree. Even Gox, after a long moment of internal struggle, gave a sharp nod. The Steel Claw's remote systems are yours. But remember, if this fails, if one more world burns because we waited. If we fail, Mary said firmly, I'll personally lead the final attack run myself. But we won't fail. Because for once, we're going to be smarter than the threat we're facing. As the commander's holograms winked out, Tom walked up to Mary. Can you really deliver on that promise? Mary looked at the displays, at the complex web of calculations and patterns that represented their best hope for survival. We have to. Because if we can't prove that caution and science are stronger than blind courage, we're all dead anyway. The purple storm loomed on their screens, growing ever larger, while humanity prepared to fight it in their own careful way. Bill Peterson's fingers moved quickly across his control panel on Space Station Hope. As chief drone coordinator, he had to manage thousands of automated units at once. The massive holographic display in front of him showed the first wave of drones moving into position around the purple storm. First ring of the web is at 80% deployment, he reported. Captain Mary Wells and Dr. James Cooper stood behind him, watching the patterns take shape. Silver Fleet units are performing better than expected. Any response from the storm? Mary asked. Not yet. We're still at safe observation distance. Bill checked another screen. But look at these energy readings. It's noticed us. The outer edge is starting to ripple. They had spent the last 24 hours programming every available drone and remote station with James's movement patterns. Now came the dangerous part, testing their theory. Drone Cluster 17, initiate pulse sequence, Bill ordered. On the main screen, a group of drones released carefully calculated energy bursts. Everyone held their breath. The storm's edge wavered, then moved slightly to the left, exactly as predicted. It worked. James grabbed his tablet, recording data. The movement matches our calculations perfectly. A harsh laugh came from behind them. War Commander Gox had insisted on watching personally. Moved a few meters. Impressive. At this rate, you'll save the galaxy in 1,000 years. Small steps, Mary said firmly. We prove the concept first, then scale up. She nodded to Bill. Begin Phase 2. More drone clusters activated. This time, hundreds of units pulsed in sequence, creating a complex pattern of energy waves. On the screen, the storm responded, its movements following James's predictions with increasing accuracy. Look at this, Bill pointed to a new reading. When we pulse the drones in this pattern, the storm's energy absorption rate drops by 15%. It's not just moving, it's getting weaker. Suddenly, alarms blared. A small fleet of ships had entered the sector, the remaining Dragon warriors ignoring the hold order on attacks. No, James muttered. If they attack now, while the web is still forming. Dragon warrior fleet, stand down. Mary's voice cut through the comm channels. You'll disrupt the containment pattern. We will not stand down while machines dance, came the reply. Warriors fight. Bill's hands flew across his controls, redirecting drones to compensate for the attack vector. If I can just adjust the pulse timing. The Dragon warriors charged. But this time, something was different. The drone's energy pulses had created a new pattern in the storm's behavior. When the warriors fired their weapons, the storm's usual explosive growth didn't happen. Energy absorption rate is holding steady, Bill reported, surprise in his voice. The web it's actually containing the damage. They watched as the Dragon warrior ships were still lost, but this time the storm didn't grow stronger. The web of drones maintained their pulse pattern, holding the entity in check. Now they'll have to listen, Mary said quietly. Show them the numbers. James sent the data to the main Galactic Council feed. The proof was undeniable. The human approach was working. The storm could be contained, controlled, and eventually guided away from populated space. Impressive. Commander Lin's voice came over the comm. She had been watching silently. The Silver Fleet commits all its remaining automated units to your web. Perhaps there is wisdom in caution after all. Even Gox stood straighter. The Steel Claw units are yours to command. But make them count, humans. Bill nodded, already adjusting his control patterns. Beginning final web deployment. All drone clusters, initiate full containment sequence. On the massive screen, thousands of points of light surrounded the purple storm. Each one pulsed in perfect sequence, creating a mathematical dance of energy and motion. The storm responded, its movements becoming more predictable, more controlled. 3 days until critical mass, James reminded them. But look, its growth rate is dropping steadily. We might actually have more time than we thought. Mary placed a hand on Bill's shoulder. Keep the pattern steady. Humanity's way is about to prove itself. They watched as the web of drones continued their complex dance, slowly but surely bringing order to chaos. Not through brave charges or glorious battles, but through careful planning, patient observation, and the wisdom to know that sometimes the best way to fight is to not fight at all. Above them, in the vastness of space, human caution was about to save the galaxy. Admiral Jack Stone watched from the command center of Space Station Hope as the largest coordinated operation in galactic history unfolded. The main display showed over 10,000 drones and automated stations, their positions marked by blue dots, forming an enormous web around the purple storm. Final drone units from the Rockbreakers are in position. Bill Peterson reported from his control station. The web is complete. About time, Captain Merriwell said, checking the countdown timer. We have 36 hours until critical mass. The command center was packed with holographic observers from every major species in the galaxy. Even those who had mocked human caution now watched in tense silence as the operation began. All drone clusters, initiate primary sequence. Admiral Stone ordered. Remember the simulations. Slow and steady wins this race. Thousands of energy pulses flickered across space, each one precisely timed and positioned. The purple storm responded immediately, its edges rippling as it began to move exactly as Dr. James Cooper had predicted. First directional shift confirmed, Bill announced. Storm is moving along planned Vector 7. Look at the energy readings, James added excitedly. The absorption rate is dropping faster than expected. The web isn't just controlling it, it's wearing it down. A murmur went through the alien observers. This was something their mighty weapons had never achieved. Suddenly, warning lights flashed. Energy spike detected. Bill's fingers flew across his controls. Something's wrong in Sector 4. On the display, a cluster of drones was malfunctioning, their energy pulses falling out of sync. The storm's edge began to bulge dangerously in that direction. Reroute power from Sectors 3 and 5, Admiral Stone commanded. Stabilize that pattern. The Steel Claw units can fill the gap, Commander Gox's hologram spoke up. Give the order. Mary nodded to Bill, who quickly integrated the Steel Claw drones into the pattern. The storm's movement stabilized, returning to its planned course. Pattern restored, Bill reported. But that surge knocked out 50 drones. We're running on minimal coverage in Sector 4. Hold position, Admiral Stone said firmly. The web only needs to hold for 20 more minutes. Then we reach the gravity well. They had discovered that a nearby system contained a massive gas giant with unusual gravitational properties. If they could guide the storm into its pull, the entity would be trapped, unable to threaten any more populated worlds. Energy levels rising in the storm's core, James warned. It's fighting the web harder than expected. More warning lights flashed as drones began failing under the strain. The alien observers muttered nervously. They were used to quick battles, not this slow battle of wills. Rerouting power to compensate, Bill said, his voice tense. But we're losing units faster than predicted. At this rate, the web will fail before we reach the gravity well. We need more power to the remaining units, Mary suggested. But that might burn them out completely. Admiral Stone studied the display, watching the pattern of drone failures. Then he smiled. "No, we need less power." Everyone turned to stare at him. "Think about it," he continued. "Every time we hit it with more power, it fights harder. So let's do what humans do best. Be cautious. Bill, reduce power output by 30% across all units." "But sir," Bill protested, "if we reduce power." "Trust me. Remember what we learned. Sometimes less is more." Bill hesitated, then adjusted the controls. The energy pulses from the remaining drones dimmed noticeably. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the storm's energy levels began to drop. "It's working," James exclaimed. "Without the strong pulses to fight against, it's settling into a stable pattern." The alien observers leaned forward as the storm moved steadily toward the gravity well, its resistance fading. Even Commander Gox nodded in reluctant approval. 5 minutes to gravity well perimeter," Bill announced. "Web integrity holding at 42%. It's going to be close." Admiral Stone watched calmly as thousands of drones maintained their delicate dance, guiding their powerful but predictable enemy toward its trap. Not with force, not with glory, but with patience and understanding. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "the biggest battles are won by knowing when not to fight too hard." Above them, the purple storm moved inevitably toward its destination, guided by the very caution it had once mocked. Ambassador Tom Reed stood in the Galactic Council chamber, this time with his head held high. The massive screens behind him showed the purple storm, now safely contained within the gravity well of the gas giant, its deadly energy slowly being drained away. "The threat has been neutralized," he announced to the assembled representatives. "The entity is trapped in a stable orbit, getting weaker by the hour. No more systems will be lost. No more lives will be taken." The chamber was silent, a very different silence from the mocking one he had faced just days ago. High Ambassador Rix rose from his seat, his golden scales gleaming. "The human plan succeeded," Rix admitted, "through means that many of us—" He paused, choosing his words carefully, "that many of us had dismissed as cowardice." On the space station Hope, Captain Mary Wells and her team watched the council meeting through a live feed. The station's main display still showed thousands of surviving drones maintaining their careful watch over the contained storm. "Final report," Bill Peterson announced. "The WED lost 67% of its units, but the containment field is holding steady. The storm's energy level has dropped to 31% of its peak." Dr. James Cooper looked up from his data. "Better yet, we're learning so much from studying it safely. The patterns we've discovered could help protect us from similar threats in the future." Back in the council chamber, Commander Gox's hologram appeared. The warrior who had once sneered at human caution now spoke with newfound respect. "The Steel Claw Fleet requests." He seemed to struggle with the words, "requests training in human safety protocols and scientific observation methods." More representatives stood, adding their voices. The Silver Fleet, the Rock Breakers, even the proud Dragon Warriors, all asking to learn what they had once mocked. "You see," Tom addressed the council, "what you called cowardice was really wisdom passed down through countless human generations. Every safety rule we follow was written in blood. Every careful procedure was born from past tragedy." He walked to the center of the chamber, looking at each representative in turn. "We build underground because we learn to respect nature's power. We send drones first because we value life over glory. We study before acting because we know the cost of hasty decisions." On the main screen, the contained storm flickered, its once deadly energy now a fading purple glow. "Today proved that courage comes in many forms," Tom continued. "Sometimes it takes more bravery to wait, to watch, to think, than to charge in with weapons blazing." High Ambassador Rix raised all 4 hands for silence. "The Council recognizes that changes must be made. Human safety protocols will be integrated into galactic standard procedures. Their methods of careful study and observation will be taught alongside traditional combat training. Back on Space Station Hope, Admiral Stone watched the proceedings with a quiet smile. "Send the final activation signal," he ordered. Bill pressed a sequence of controls. The remaining drones around the storm began their last task, establishing a permanent observation network. They would watch, record, and learn, turning a deadly enemy into a source of valuable scientific knowledge. "The web will stay in place," Mary announced to the Council through their link. "A constant reminder that intelligence beats force, and patience beats glory." The Council chamber erupted in approval. Species that had existed for millennia, that had built their civilizations on warrior pride, now stood to applaud the humans who had saved them all by refusing to be warriors. "There will be more threats," Tom concluded, "more challenges that test our resolve. But perhaps now we can face them together, with both the courage to act and the wisdom to know when not to act." As if to emphasize his words, the purple storm gave one last feeble pulse before settling into its new prison, defeated not by mighty weapons or brave sacrifices, but by human caution and careful planning. Dr. James Cooper looked at his final readings and smiled. "You know what the best part is? We didn't just save everyone. We learned something new, and that's the most human victory of all." In the vast darkness of space, the web of drones continued their patient vigil, a testament to the species that had proven, once and for all, that being called a coward was sometimes the bravest thing of all. For in the end, it wasn't the warrior races who had saved the galaxy. It was the humans, the cautious ones, the careful ones, the ones who knew that true courage meant having the patience to find the right way, not just the glorious way. And that was a lesson the galaxy would never forget.